How's it, everyone? This is Lolcohol with an update to the Eventide Petals Martial Artist. Today's video, I'm going to go over all the frequently asked questions, suggestions of improvements for defense and damage, share some new explode tech, cover things like mana recovery for people who have been struggling with that. You can check the timestamps below for everything, but I do recommend checking everything out just in case you missed something. So the first thing to discuss is this Blasphemy and Repulsion setup. This allows your chains to propagate throughout enemies even better than before. It feels so good. I tested this yesterday and I was instantly convinced. I went back to Herald of Thunder and I could just feel the difference. It didn't feel as good. So this setup makes this build feel even better. It just makes those chains way more consistent. However, there are a couple of downsides to this. Firstly, Blasphemy reserves 60 spirits by default. You can get this lower with some quality if you have the quality on your gloves and apply quality to this. I think it reserves 52. Yeah, it's 52 spirits. So the downside is you're going to have to drop an aura somewhere. Something like your Herald of Thunder, your Wind Dancer, or both possibly, or you need to get more spirit on your chest. Something like this really helps. Huge amount of spirits so that I can fit in all the auras. So right now I'm just using Herald of Ice, Blasphemy, Charge Regulation. This one is optional. I'll go into this in a bit, and then Wind Dancer for more evasion. But this, I highly recommend just trying it out. I think you'll be an instant believer. People in chat were trying to get me to do this for like 4 days, and I finally tested it, and I see why. One thing to add though with this Blasphemy setup is that Repulsion is actually a curse. So previously I had Hand of Shayula linked with Elemental Weakness and Freezing Mark, but because this is a curse, this will just replace your Elemental Weakness way more quickly than you can apply it. So one thing you can do, you can, when you get to a boss, just take this out. Or what you can do instead is just go back to Pounce and just use Freezing Mark. That's actually what I've opted for with Pounce. These links are over here. I've also added in a Holy Descent, which gives you some Consecrated Ground for a bit of life regen, Marker Siphoning for some Mana Leech and Life Leech. Now for defenses on a budget, I have a more expensive version now that is very nice and tanky, but what I did test was this Forgotten Warden chest. This chest gives you a lot of deflection rating per missing energy shield, also has a huge amount of evasion rating and energy shields. And another thing that's great is that it gives you a companion, a spirit vessel that can use druid skills to further buff you. One big downside on this is that it doesn't have any spirit, so you are now limited to about 100, maybe you have about 18 left over. The one way around this is with a rune. There's a soul core of Azkapa. It gives you 15 spirit if you put it in your weapon. It's a little bit pricey though. It's about, I don't know, 1.5 divines. There's also an alloy that gives some reservation on boots, but this is getting this to work on a pair of boots might be a little bit tricky. So if you do go this route, you can get a soul core of Azkapa, and then you can put in your weapon, and that way you can run Herald of Ice, Blasphemy if you do want to run it, and then Wind Dancer or Charge Regulation or something like that. But the other nice thing about this is that it gives you a skill, Spirit Vessel, which summons a shapeshifting companion that copies bear, werewolf, and wyvern skills. I tested quite a few. Something like Oil Barrage is really nice for a bit of exposure. You can also use Arctic Howl. This gives you increased freeze buildup and flat damage to attacks. So I think this was the best thing I tried. The links, I'm not 100% sure. I want to do, this should be prolonged duration, mag area, cooldown recovery. There's also a cool but pretty expensive lineage gem, which is Amanamu's Tithe, which I just sold because I'm not using it anymore. This has 50% chance to gain an abyssal modifier for 20 seconds when a minion from supported skills dies. You can use this if you want, but just the Arctic Howl is really nice, and defensively this is very strong. If you do need a little bit of extra reservation, let's say that 15 that you get on your staff isn't enough, or maybe you don't have the quality on gloves, there are these little points over here, increased reservation of herald skills that you can allocate to just get a little bit more to help out with that. Another downside of this chest is that it doesn't have resistances. So what you might want to do instead of using Chevron's satchel, is get a belt with resistances and life. The question then is, how do we get energy shield recovery? You can use something like Nascent Hope. When I had this setup, I felt I wasn't really dying that much anymore compared to previously, even though my energy shield recovery on paper wasn't really all that good. So give this a try. Forgotten Warden with Nascent Hope and a belt with some resistances and life helps quite a lot. Next thing to discuss is Rend Uptime and Charge Generation. So Rend, this, when you use it, if you consume a power charge, you gain 50% of damage as extra lightning. I currently have my tree set up like this now with a whole lot of increased skill effect duration. This is on my weapon set 2. This is increased skill effect duration. There's some skill effect duration here. And at the top of the tree, there's some increased skill effect duration over here. This just makes it so that your Rend, instead of lasting just 13 seconds, lasts for 30 seconds. You can also use this, Amor Mandragora, for another 15% increased skill effect duration. In terms of charge generation, though, some people suggested using Devour instead of killing Palm. What you do is you attack a colorable enemy or a corpse, and you get a power charge. You can do that with your little hollow focus bells. The thing that's nice about this is with Thrill of the Kill, attacks gain damages lightning for 8 seconds on culling an enemy. This now benefits from all that increased skill effect duration that I have on the tree. So this lasts for a really long time, and so does the Rend. So that's the benefit of doing it with this, because this is on our weapon set 2. Thrill of the Kill lasts for longer. The other thing with charge generation I've had a million questions on is this setup with Living Lightning, Culmination, and Ailith's Chimes on Hollow Focus. The way this works is, if I try and just put in my Culmination or my Ailith, it doesn't work. But if you first put in the Living Lightning and then the Culmination and the Ailith Chimes, then it works. This helps to generate charges. I don't know if this is a bug. It might be, but we'll see. I think the thing that makes it work is having this Living Lightning. And then when your Hollow Focus does spawn, it counts as consuming combo and then generates charges. We'll see if this gets patched. If it does, it's not a huge bummer. There's some other ways around it. The other thing, there is this secret Thaumaturgic Generator anoint, which is, I think it was about 6 divines. I'll put the thing on screen, what the secret recipe is. This allows you to generate charges, and it's based on the attribute requirements of your skills. So with this, we're getting frenzy charges. I don't really know if it's super worth it. The thing that's nice with these is charge regulation. This is giving us 25% increased skill speed when you have a frenzy charge, more critical hit chance while you have a power charge. This is really nice, mainly for the more critical hit chance, but the increased skill speed is nice. I want to find a way to get consistent endurance charges. That'll make this really, really worth it. So don't worry about this anoint. I don't think it is mega important. I'm just currently testing it. Another question are, what are some other good anoints? I've had so many suggestions, but I was using Barbaric Strength over here for 45% increased critical damage bonus. Vulgar Methods for increased crit chance. If you're low on crit chance, try get something like this. The downside on this is reduced mana, but the increased crit chance is great. Overwhelming Strikes, also nice. That crit damage bonus won't apply to your ice crystals, but it applies to your attacks. There's also some crit over here. Tainted Strike. This one's really nice. Some people have suggested up here, Well of Power, for a bit of mana recovery, but it's kind of whatever you need, try and get that. If you're low on crit chance, anoint something or instill something that gives you crit chance. Something I was testing on the initial version, I think, was Reaching Strike or Unerring Impact, just for a bit of strike range, but I don't think this was the right option. Next question. How do I get +2 on my Eventide Petals? So there is a secret recipe that you can find by doing expedition logbooks in one of the underground areas. It seems like just a random chance. It took me ages to find it. And when you do get that, you can take your Eventide Petals, it's the Verisium Anvil, and then I think there's a certain cost with Exceptional Verisium and then a special one of these things that you have to use. And it gives you a new implicit. I think there's 4. There's something like max cold res, % increased ward, and then level of cold skills is one of them. I don't know if it's like evenly weighted as a 1 in 4, but that is how you get it. This is very, very nice for your Midnight Zenith level and the level of your other skills, but it is pretty damn expensive. The other question about this, and it is answered in the guide, but how do I get extra sockets on my Eventide Petals? You can now use these. You can use these things on any item that has a skill to add sockets. So same with the chest. If you're using the chest, you can add sockets on it like that. And then if you want to get the level of this thing higher, I do recommend trying to buy one with a level 20 Midnight Zenith. But there is an item called the Perfect Flux. This will increase the level on an item to 20, but it is mega expensive. It's now 30 divines. So that's why I say rather try and get a level 20 and then try roll for the +2, or just buy a level 20 with a +2. If you get a level 19 with a +2, then compare the price of that with the Perfect Flux and see what's going to be more expensive. A few other socket changes that I should mention. I'm still experimenting with stuff, but there's a couple of things that feel really good. Ancestral Call on Shattering Palm feels really nice. Supported skills are anxiously boosted once every 3 seconds. With this, and especially with Repulsion, when you do approach back a monster and you hit it for the first time, it really sends out a lot of those crystals that then explode on the enemies. Feels great. Other thing, Herald of Ice, I was using Armor Break with Armor Explosion. That was sort of like a vestige of something I was testing previously. I was using like extra physical damage with material solidification, and I think I had some damage to extra fizz, but it really wasn't working, so I just took it out. Instead, replaced it with Cold Mastery and Elemental Armament. The other gems are mostly the same. There's a couple of things that I was testing. I was testing Crystalline Shards of Midnight Zenith. Still don't know how good that was. It kind of felt good, but I'm not 100% sure. It's sort of like vibe-based testing because I can't really pop it. The other skills are, I believe, almost identical. Now, next thing, Mana Sustain. First thing, if you do have a Mana Flask, just make sure to use it. Like, push that button once in a while. There's also this little flask over here, Lavianga's Spirits. So if you do forget to push your flask, you can buy one of these guys. This just constantly applies mana to your character without having to push it. There's also some nice things on the tree, like Lavianga's Brew over here. Increased mana cost efficiency of attacks during any flask effect. Another thing is on jewels, you can get things like gain % of mana on kill. You can also get mana on kill like this, gain mana per enemy killed. That'll help. Leech, bit of mana leech should help out. I have a whole video on this topic, but there's some ideas for you. Some people have also suggested Well of Power over here as an anoint. Sorry, I keep saying anoint. That's what it's called in PoE 1. Instillment. Willpower. Some people have suggested this, but I haven't tested it, and on paper, I don't really know how good it is. Someone in chat called Angel yesterday had a really nice suggestion as well, which was to use on your Whirling Assault. If you don't have Mana Leech, it's actually a support gem for Mana Leech. Put this on your Whirling Assault, and then when you get low on mana, push that button and spin, and you should get some mana. If you don't have enough mana, you could even link this with something like Life Tap, so you can give that a try as well. One other question is crit chance, like how much crit chance do I need? Try and get your crit chance capped on your Shattering Palm especially. So mine is pretty much at 100% on my Shattering Palm. If you don't have, let's say 100% on your Shattering Palm, try using Pinpoint Critical. Gives you 60% more crit chance, but less crit bonus. Try to put this on most of your skills that you want to crit regularly, like your Herald of Ice, but especially your Shattering Palm as well. You want this to be critting as much as possible. Another thing, this point over here, Throat Seeker. If you aren't crit capped, try to not take this. It's only 20% reduced and you get a lot of increased crit bonus with it, but just be aware of that. Maybe you want to take that out. There's also this up here, Careful Assassin, for 50% increased crit chance. This combined with this can be really good, but just if you're really low on crit chance, pay attention to that. The original build guide video also goes over getting crit, like over here on your gloves, getting crit over here. By the way, today on stream, what I want to do is kind of figure out how to craft a budget staff and gloves. The gloves, you can get decent one on the trade site, but these Sinister quarter saves with like the one I have after the video came out are now super expensive. So I'll see if I can figure out a way to make like a much cheaper one that should function. And as for Fizz versus Ellie, I think a Fizz staff should be alright. Again, I haven't popped it, but if you get something with like flat Fizz and percent Fizz, and then you get this cold damage modifier and crit, it should feel pretty good. By the way, this cold damage modifier, you can get this on a quarterstaff by using a combination of, let's see, Sinistral Necromancy, and then you want a Kurgle. I don't have a Kurgle. There's a Kurgle Omen, Omen of the Black-Blooded, and then with a Preserved Jawbone, that will, I believe it guarantees that you will unveil percent increased cold damage. So you can get that percent cold damage like that. If you find a staff with like flat cold and lightning and an empty prefix, you can get it like that. Now, in my version of the build, I have a more expensive setup. I'm using this chest instead of the Forgotten Warden. This gives me a lot of spirit, resistances, energy shield, and evasion. But the main thing are these boots over here. At Series Step, these boots give you a huge amount of deflection rating, but normally they have this one over here, which is a roll that reduces the amount of damage prevented by deflection. So it gives you a ton of deflection, but it makes your deflection less effective. What you can do, and I did so many of these boots, as you can see over here, this is my tab of sadness. There is an item called a Vile Cultivation Orb. What this does is it replaces up to 2 modifiers on a corrupted Vile unique and replaces it with other modifiers. So what you're trying to do is you get a pair of these boots, something like this with the high deflection rating and evasion rating. Then you add quality and you add sockets and then you corrupt it, hope it doesn't break, and then you use one of these things on it, the Vile Cultivation Orb, and hope that it removes that bad modifier, the one that makes your deflection increase the amount of damage you take, and add something else like this. So the chance of that, I don't know what the chance is. As you can see, I tried many times. I believe these are like 40 divines on trade, and see if you can get it. But this is allowing me to get just a massive amount of deflection rating. So it's about 84% is my Wind Dancer up. So while moving, it is about 84%, and I got about 20,000 evasion rating. It was higher yesterday. I don't know why it's gone down. I got it up to 95. I'll investigate. But anyway, getting some deflection on your helmet as well makes a big difference. But these boots make, yeah, you can get very, very tanky like this. I think that's all for now. On the written guide, I've added some stuff. I've suggested things like getting your mana sorted. I've also put up my current version of the build, the Deflection Stacker, and the slightly tankier version over here. I'll just write some of the stuff. I'll adjust the gems. There's a few little changes over here that I need to make, but it's nothing major. But if you want to see this version, it's over here. I'll rename this so it's a bit more obvious. And this is like the main build that I put out the guide for, the basic one. Because there's so much experimentation happening, the build guide, I'm trying to not let it fall into a big mess, but it's a little bit tricky. Anyway, that's it. Have a wonderful day, everyone. I'll be live if you have more questions, but watch the video, read the guide. I'll try to update the sections of the written guide just to have all that information there for you. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. Catch you later. Bye-bye.